Welcome back to Best Ball Summer of 2025 here at ETR. I've missed you guys. We are hundreds and hundreds of drafts in already, but it doesn't feel like it really starts until we get these weekly streams going. And I know, Adam, we've done a couple here and there, a little one-off, but we are kicking things off officially now. And what better guest to bring on than Mr. Adam Levitan himself? And what did we start off with? The 1.01. Adam, how we doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here for the first official Best Ball stream of the summer. And yes, we are drafting a team that is going to win $2 million. There's no doubt about it.
There's never any doubt. And it's all process, right? Results we don't care about. They just seem to come on in. But yeah, we already jumped right in. We are doing the DraftKings. This is the $20, their main contest, $2 million up top. Our partners over at DraftKings, great to be in. Throughout the summer, we'll do DraftKings. We're still going to do some underdog, might do some drafted. We're going to mix it up. I know there are a lot of fun contests out there right now. I've already gotten some requests and DMs as well. I want to see some super flex. I want to hear eliminator strategy. So we're going to mix it up. But for today, we are going back to the roots. This is just best ball. This is core structure. This is the big money up top. It's on DraftKings. Let's get this going.
Yeah, so, I think for people that don't typically play on DraftKings, we should address a few things off the top. This is 20 rounds, and I think that makes a pretty big difference. You need your knowledge, of course, needs to be deeper as we go deeper, but you can do some things like wait longer at tight end. You can do things like take some stabs on guys that maybe we don't have projectable volume for right now, and we'll get into some of those guys. So I think the 20-round thing makes a big difference. Full PPR with yardage bonuses also makes a massive difference on underdog. On DraftKings. And people screw this up when they come over from underdog, where it's so touchdown heavy. The quarterbacks are going to be a way larger portion of your score on underdog versus DraftKings, because wide receivers and tight ends and even pass catching running backs can just post these massive scores that pocket passers just aren't going to make, that aren't going to create here on DraftKings. So clearly, I think just Jamar Chase for us here at the 1.01. Herzig, any other thoughts here on DraftKings strategy before we really get going?
Now let's lock in Jamar Chase. And I will say, I think one of the more popular podcasts or streams we've done in a while was that differences between underdog and DraftKings from a basketball perspective. I think that was maybe 2-3 weeks ago, but you can still find it on the ETR YouTube. Or actually even just posted in the ETR AMA recently as well, but highly recommend checking that out. Adam touched on a lot of the top ones there, but we really got like a good conversation. I think it kind of, like we talked about stacking, how in my opinion, it's not actually as important in DraftKings. It isn't on site like underdog. So some counterintuitive things came out in that, but yeah, so we got to drafting, and yeah, Jamar Chase for me, I think is just an easy 1.01. Don't want to get too cute. We have him from projections, number one. If you're not going to take him 1.01, then you're going to be severely underweight. And I'm not really a fan of kind of being crazy underweight in the first round, or especially not the top of the draft.
Yeah, well, and one guy that I've been underweight on early on DraftKings specifically is like, yeah, we have him a few spots behind ADP, so you don't get him, is Ashton Genty, right? And like, if you just follow the ranks, you're never going to get him. And I've kind of been like, well, listen, I think that there's better plays in Ashton Genty. I prefer Nico Collins. I prefer Brian Thomas Jr. I prefer Malik Neighbors. I certainly prefer Christian McCaffrey, but I don't want to have like zero Ashton Genty. And so if you're doing a lot of drafts, like some things you can do is certainly in the back here, just be like, you know what, this time I'm going to end up with an Ashton Genty team. Otherwise, you're going to end up with like stone cold zero of him. I'm way more willing to take big stands later in the draft. But yeah, how do you think about when we're kind of just a couple spots behind here on a guy, you'll never end up with him if you're just a couple spots behind and only go off the ranks?
Well, I think we need to consider as well, it's June 19th. Happy Juneteenth. Throw that out there. But we are still early in the larger kind of best ball summer. And so I think like, hey, Adam, if you would have said that like a month ago, that if you're not taking Ashton Genty at 1.7, 1.8, you're not going to get him. Well, now he is falling to the late first, even early second. And so I think we still see some movement throughout the summer. And this isn't just an Ashton Genty thing, but all players, whether it's either news related, whether it's injury, like whether it's just team based, we still see some shuffle. And so I don't like too early right now to be forcing the hand and saying like, hey, I'm going to reach on a player just because that's the only way I'm going, reach on our ranks to get him at ADP because that's the only way I'm going to get him. But if we start getting into, hey, late July, mid-August, and you're like, I still don't have any of him, and he hasn't, hey, taken a big move up the ranks, which we're not expecting, then that's where I can kind of say, you know what, I can take a bit more of a balance. I can grab some, and I have a better idea of who the unique combos that he hasn't been being paired with in the second round. So now I'm getting a bit of a unique start, even though I'm giving up maybe a little of our rank or ADP value.
Yeah, so with a Jamar Chase pick 1.01, there's a lot of different ways you can go here. T. Higgins is almost always available. Not always, but almost always available here. And there's been a lot of controversy whether you should set up the Burrow stack. I don't mind Chase Brown with Jamar Chase either. But yeah, have you played the 1.01 with Jamar Chase so far?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind at all going wide receiver running back on elite teams like the Chase and the Chase Brown, because then you don't have to take Burrow. If he falls to you in that like 6-7, sure, grab him, but you don't feel like you need to reach. And you can still kind of, hey, gather a ton of the points, in a large blowout game or, shootout game with just the elite wide receiver running back. We have the option here with the Chase Brown, the T. Higgins. Rashee Rice has been moving up the boards. I'm probably, I think I would lean Chase Brown to start and maybe go with Rashee. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I've done the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins thing. I just feel like everybody has that now. Not that I think that's like a huge consideration, but I like going Jamar Chase, Chase Brown. And then if I don't end up with Burrow, if someone takes Burrow ahead of our rank, it's not like the end of the world for me. Whereas if you go T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and I don't end up with Burrow, I feel pretty sick about it. But I also don't want to reach for Burrow because he's still a pocket passer that is going to need insane volume and efficiency to compete with the Russian quarterbacks.
Exactly. And his ADP is 46.6. So while on, another like underdog, you can often get him to fall to that 6-7. He so rarely falls that you almost have to take him at that 4-5 turn. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think that's what we want to doing. So yeah, I like this. We grab Chase Brown. I'm taking Rashee Rice as well here. One of the biggest kind of movers of the past few weeks. What are your take kind of on the Rashee Rice? Obviously positive health reports, but just,
yeah.
Are you buying?
I was like the biggest Rashee Rice guy last year. He was my most owned player by far in best ball, but that was different. I mean, I was getting him round 6, then round 5, then round 4, then late in round 3. At this price, I feel like we are paying close to the ceiling for Rashee Rice when you consider that Xavier Worthy showed he can run some of those underneath routes late last year. Travis Kelce can still run some of the underneath routes. Travis Kelce can. So I hate saying bad things about Rashee Rice. I think he's going to absolutely smash, but we are certainly paying for it now where he goes ahead of Garrett Wilson, ahead of Terry McLaurin, ahead of Josh Allen, ahead of Lamar Jackson, ahead of Devontae Adams and guys like that. So I like Rashee Rice, and I really like Patrick Mahomes too. So I like setting up that stack as well. But yeah, I don't want to go too much higher for me on Rashee Rice.
Yeah, and if we look at the Patrick Mahomes 71.6, and so we will have picks 72 and 73. Mm-hmm. So it definitely falls right to us and sets up well for that Rashee Rice. The Burrow one, as we noted, we'd have to reaching on, and I think we're pretty set that we're not going to reach there. Instead of like paying the absurd price, because I think Rashee Rice is probably going to keep increasing, I would not take him. I think I said like my line's kind of like Lad McConkey, Devon Achane. Like I can't see myself taking Rice ahead of that. Can we get Drew Davenport just like to bring up the suspension stuff again? Maybe this is a year Rashee Rice might get suspended. Like, can we get a little of that? Maybe drop his price down. I don't know. I mean, it's getting expensive.
Well, it's been so quiet on the suspension front. No word there. And then also he's just looked so healthy at OTAs. And, guys like that, when there's not much news in the offseason, guys like that are certainly going to rise. But yeah, it's just a different scenario for Rashee Rice than it was last year. It's certainly more crowded.
Yeah, and hey, this is our first kind of, kickoff stream of the summer. So I feel like we can still talk a little about last year. Rashee Rice, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Godwin, all of those picks that we just absolutely were going to turn out to be, I don't know, maybe league winners, at least substantially great values, and just the injury bug hit them. Still, just pouring some out for some of those wide receivers last year.
And meanwhile, Saquon Barkley, James Conner, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry all stay healthy and smash, and so did almost every other running back. And so, a big meta question for this year is, was that an outlier? And actually, we have a video coming up. I did an interview with Austin Eckler, and my first question to him was, do you think last year's run-pass ratio stuff was an outlier or not? He didn't really have like a strong take or opinion on it, but I'm still playing, especially on DraftKings where it's full PPR, as if that last year, the injury rates and the success of running backs was more outlier than it has been, than it will be going forward. Last 5-6 years, the wide receiver heavy stuff has been what's winning.
Yeah, like, because I think last year there were some team dynamics that are predictive going forward. This kind of, more usage of the run game. Maybe it's the kind of cover two that defenses are playing. And so I think like there are some elements that are predictive, and we maybe need to shift the way we kind of think about some running backs. We also have fewer of these just pass catching running backs, but the injury stuff was still just so impactful to advance rates, to success last year, that we can't just, hey, copy paste to this year. All right, we are coming back. We are one away. We've got 2 wide receivers, 1 running back.
Did Jalen Hurts go? Because one thing he didn't go. So one thing that on underdog, I would take Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts for sure. I think Devonta just went. Yeah.
If we wanted to grab a second running back, our ranks are pushing for Hampton. I like Kenneth Walker as well. Wide receivers drop a little. Kind of open area. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think, in a balanced build, and last video we did, I think we ended up with a 0-ish RB build. I think in a balanced build, they're totally fine. Here, Hampton, and I would probably say Flowers. I know people are going to want Travis Hunter here. I'm a little scared. I will say though, if I was going to IKB the ranks, like Pickens would be my guy. I think Dallas is going to throw so much, but I think the safer one is probably Zay Flowers. But yeah, if I was going to IKB, it would be George Pickens here, which I like a little bit better than our rank, just on Dallas throwing so much and Pickens being a talented guy.
Hey, you're the guest. You've got 3. Oh, okay. We're going Zay. I was giving you the opportunity, and no, I did not do that. Clearly.
Well, I do think that also Pickens gives you, like, I like Dak Prescott. And so, when I'm thinking through these decisions, if you think it's close between Flowers and Pickens, which I think that it is, Flowers, obviously, Lamar Jackson is already gone. Pickens, we could set up Dak stacks later. And I also really like Jake Ferguson also. And so I have a bunch of that Dak, Ferguson, Pickens stuff, even when I don't get CeeDee Lamb. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. The Patrick Mahomes should fall to us in the next round kind of gives me a little comfort there. But, yeah, no, I think anytime you're taking a player like Zay Flowers, when you've already known, hey, Jamar Chase, you're not going to get stacked with. Lamar's already gone. That's just one fewer potential stack partner later on. So I like that Pickens process there. Pickens goes 1 pick before the CeeDee Lamb drafter. That would have been a fun Dallas kind of onslaught there.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta say hey to chat though. We get a lot of people in here. How's it going, everyone? I saw Pod Sunday here earlier was talking about kind of that video that we put out with the underdog DK. Terms and conditions, rules, what are those? Those aren't necessary, but we're here to help you out. Have a little fun while learning. But you can see a lot of familiar faces out there. And yeah, Thursdays, 2:00, we'll always be streaming, mixing it up. This one available for everyone in the future. We'll do a couple more public ones, but a lot of them are going to be specifically for people with that Best Ball ETR subscription package that you see flashing on the bottom of the screen right now. Thanks.
Yeah. And by the way, I just updated for all the OTA news, all my player-by-player notes. If you do have the Best Ball package, you can go in there and read my take on pretty much every player. And yeah, last year, a lot of these were free. Frankly, if we're being honest, the AI revolution is going to cause us to put a lot more stuff behind the paywall so it can't be scraped and trained. People are training their AI models on our stuff because we have a bunch of authority on this stuff. They train their models on it. And then it becomes out there with the behind the paywall. It's different. So you'll start to see more stuff this summer behind the paywall there as part of the Best Ball package and draft kit.
All right. So we talked about Travis Hunter. And Travis Hunter, where did he end up going? Right here at the pick 54. But I think that recent report was interesting because 3 weeks ago, we start seeing like, okay, Travis Hunter, people are tracking his practices, how many on offense, how many on defense. I believe it was like 5 or 6 straight on offense, 1 on defense, and maybe 1 both. And so initially the takeaway is like, he's playing offense. This is the go-to. Now, what was it? The GM came out and he's explaining, well, the reason why he was playing offense is because he's so comfortable on defense, and the offense has a bit more nuance, a bit more of a learning curve or a ramp up for him. And so that scares me a little. If anything, it kind of counterweights the benefit that we were giving him early on when it was, I'm playing a whole bunch of offense. Well, now it's, well, yeah, he was playing that because he's already so comfortable on defense. I'm concerned.
Yeah. I mean, I was always concerned just because people are using draft capital in their model to rank Travis Hunter. If Travis Hunter only played wide receiver, would he have gone 1.02? I don't think so. A huge reason that he went 1.02 in the real draft was because he also plays corner. So yeah, we're coming up here. I have some more Hunter thoughts, but we're coming up here at the turn. Mahomes did go in front of us here.
Ooh.
So yes.
All right. So we missed out on that. We want to consider what stacks we can go with. Probably going to be a 3 QB build. We are 3 picks away. A lot of fun, guys. What do you see? What's jumping out?
Yeah, I mean, I like Olave best in a vacuum. Obviously, the stacking stuff isn't great there. I do think Geno is underpriced. I do think that JJ McCarthy's underpriced, and I do think that Brock Purdy is underpriced. So I would definitely be fine with all 3 of those guys. Given that we already have 2 running backs here and it's a full PPR format, I would not probably lean into running back too much here at all. And so, yeah, probably be a wide receiver turn for me here.
I think it kind of just fell to us because I agree with you. We don't want running back here. You can see our draft capital is already kind of in our desired allotment, and we're going to be taking more later. No QB or tight end in this area that's really attractive. Lots of reaches. So Addison and Jennings both give us potential stack partners later on. Both are position of need. I'm good with the double tap here.
For sure. And, like JJ McCarthy, I think is for sure underrated. Talk to Silva. We have a new video, a new show coming out later today about team level futures. And Silva was talking about the JJ McCarthy stuff and how good of an athlete he is. I think there's some underrated rushing upside with JJ McCarthy also. And so I think really one of the more underrated quarterbacks. And Purdy too. I mean, Purdy can get there rushing. He showed a little bit last year. And then Purdy can also get there on TD rate, which has been really strong. So those are the kind of quarterbacks that I like on DraftKings through the mid-round there. McCarthy, Purdy, Dak, Drake May, guys like that I think are really strong as 3 quarterback builds. And I'm trying to get 3 quarterbacks on DraftKings where I can.
Yeah. And I mean, so starting off with the Addison side of things for the Vikings, love JJ McCarthy, Sam Darnold. He was QB8 last year, and that's Sam Darnold with like the resurgence. I think this is more of a Kevin O'Connell situation than anything else. And JJ McCarthy was like an elite prospect, top of the draft. And yeah, I think he had the 6th fastest shuttle cone drill at the combine. That was amongst all athletes, like not just QBs. He definitely has some kind of sneaky, I think, rushing ability that I haven't probably talked about. And then for San Francisco, that defense is probably going to be pretty bad. And that's not what we're used to. We saw it last year, but the offense just wasn't healthy enough to kind of capitalize from a fantasy angle. But if you take that bad defense with an actual healthy wide receivers, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brock Purdy feels like a great stack partner. And Juwan Jennings, Juwan Jennings is probably either going to be a huge hit or he could be legit dust. Like there's just such a wide range of outcomes, but I'm willing to lean into that in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, the vibes around Ayuk haven't been great, right? So at a minimum, Jennings going to get his chance to start the season, and so will Ricky Pearsall. I saw someone ask about the props here, Hampton props. So I would not have a 1-to-1 correlation between like what the betting markets think about these guys in best ball. In best ball, where all the money's at the end, yeah, I think Najee Harris is going to start the season as a big factor. Towards the end of the season, when all the money is going down, that's when I think Omarion Hampton's going to be running laps around Najee Harris. So, I don't hate like Najee Harris as like a filler play if you need it, but I don't think props is like the direct correlation a lot of people think it is when you're drafting best ball teams. There's so much more about median rather than ceiling. And, when I'm drafting best ball, especially for 2 million, I'm drafting for ceiling as much as I can. I'm doing a MFL 10 draft right now with a bunch of guys, and like, it's only 10 of us in there. Right. And so I'm not really thinking about ceiling at all. I took Najee in that one. I was like way, way less likely to think about ceiling.
Yeah. Well, Greg is giving us a little inside information here. I'm assuming this is Greg in the 2 spot with Justin Jefferson, that he's not going to let us take him with 120. So pushing our hand, we're either going to have to reach quite a bit here or look elsewhere for our QB.
For sure. Yeah. Last thing I'll say about Travis Hunter, I know people are still asking about that. Like, the assumption is that he's just going to come in as an NFL wide receiver and just dominate right away. I think he looked great as a wide receiver in college. There's been plenty of guys who looked great as a wide receiver in college and didn't really click right away at the NFL level. So to pay the price where he was going, like early 40s, was a little steep for me. Where he went just now is way more palatable.
Yep. Agreed. Okay, we are 4 picks away. Brandon Ayuk just goes. Brock Purdy, I've got queued up for us. Kyler's also available, even though it's not a stack partner.
Yeah, and the other thing that
Bebasar takes. Ooh, he doesn't with McBride.
And the other thing that I do here sometimes just go Justin Fields, because I do think he has like the most upside of all the quarterbacks, but I would still take Kyler above him if that was the choice. But yeah, I do think Fields is an option as well in this range.
Yeah, and we have them both. And I know that like Kyler's not the prettiest when you're, you don't have McBride, you don't have Marvin Harrison. We can likely get Michael Wilson later, but Kyler can still get it done on the ground. And, we've got this as a pretty strong value with the rank wise. ADP, it's just after. You good with both QBs?
Yeah, QB turn. My God. I love it.
All right. And knowing that we're probably not going to get JJ McCarthy with the next one gives us a little more comfort.
Yeah. Losmo says, does our tool run off sims? This is the Solver Draft Assistant tool. It does not run off sims. It's not making the picks for us. All it's doing is reordering the ranks based on rules that we have submitted or rules that we have coded in. In other words, if we take Jawan Jennings, it's going to move Brock Purdy up the ranks a little bit and give it a better rating. If we spend our early draft capital at tight end, if we had taken McBride or Bowers, it would move down tight ends in the ranks. Anything else you want to add about the Solver Draft Assistant, Herzig?
Yeah, no, I think that covers it. At the end of the day, I think it's helpful just to kind of pay when I might miss something because I'm not thinking of a correlation. I think at the end of drafts, it kind of brings up some of those more stack partners. I think it's fantastic for if you're doing a whole bunch of slow drafts because you can just kind of very quickly get back up to speed on what you've been drafting and not thinking about it. Sometimes I'm not going to follow it. Sometimes I want to take something different. It's just kind of a helpful little assistant as I go through.
Yeah, and it'll factor in, there's weights. You can turn, week 17 correlation higher or lower. You can turn ADP, how much the tool is weighting ADP higher or lower. You can, assuming you have the best ball package at ETR, you can take the ETR ranks and make those weight higher or lower there also.
Yeah. Okay. We do not have any tight ends. What are your kind of thoughts on the tight end market right now?
Yeah, there's so many that I like in this mid range. Let me just pull up my stuff here. I have been, I take Bowers or McBride when they come to me on DraftKings. I don't do it as much on Underdog. We can get back with tight ends, but like we talked about on that other video with Leone, you can separate way more. The tight ends that I take a ton of through the mid range are Njoku, Andrews, Loveland, Goddard, Tyler Warren, Jake Ferguson, Tucker Kraft. Like, when I can get two of those and then come back later with like a Hunter Henry, Freiermuth, Strange, something like that, I feel good about my tight end room. Now, obviously, I'd love to have Bowers or McBride on DraftKings specifically for the full PPR, but I don't feel terrible about it. And those rooms where I get two of those guys I just mentioned and a late one, I actually feel pretty good about it, So I'm like a big, hey, if it's close, I'm going to wait on tight end and try to stack up my wide receivers, running backs, and even quarterbacks before that on DraftKings.
Yeah. And the earlier in the offseason I'm drafting, the more likely I am to wait and grab one or two tight ends at the end of drafts as well. Because once we get to August, we have more confidence on who is going to be kind of the third or fourth wide receiver on a team, who's going to be the clear number two backup. Right now, we can take guesses, but it's mostly up in the air. We just don't have as much confidence in our information. But what we do know is the tight ends that are still available in the 18, 19, 20th round are often starting tight ends. We're talking Juwan Johnson, Theo Johnson, Jatavian Sanders. We're talking guys like with upside, like Terrence Ferguson, maybe even, the latest sleeper, Gadsden over for the Chargers. Like, there's guys that I still like. We are coming back. And so I'm just more willing to kind of take advantage of those late ones, especially on DraftKings where, hey, I know I'm going to take three.
Yeah.
Hey, look, JJ McCarthy's still available.
Yeah, he bluffed us. I knew he was going to bluff us.
Wow. I think we got to do it.
God.
So this
we're definitely taking Njoku at this turn. The guy, he's just too talented to go this late. It's a lot of draft capital for me at quarterback specifically, but unless there was something else screaming at me, I might guess I'm okay with it.
All right, I'm taking Njoku first.
Yeah.
And
let me see the running backs and other tight ends and wide receivers.
Yeah, and if you look here, it's just recommending McCarthy and Njoku and Loveland. After taking Njoku, it's Ramondre and Bateman. Neither of guys, especially I like Ramondre actually on Underdog a good amount. Don't love it on DK.
Yeah. Let me see wide receiver and tight end.
Christian Kirk, Luther Burden, Bateman, Colson Loveland.
Yeah, it would be Love, Kurt, Love, Loveland, Christian Kirk, or McCarthy for me. If you think 3 tight ends is okay here, if you think this much draft capital is okay, I'm okay with it.
I do. And we're playing, this is the big tournament where we want to have stacks. The stacks are that much more important. I don't think it's like let's take a look. Like if we look at the draft capital allocation over here, we're still within the kind of target area bucket for our QBs because we spent, let's see, what rounds were those? That was 8, 9, and then the 10, 11 turn. So I'm honestly okay with it. We start seeing QBs go a lot faster on DraftKings as well because people are building for the 3. So it's not like, hey, you can just wait until round 17, 18 to grab your last one, unless you're trying to like grab that Tyler Shuck. So the difference between the 11th here or maybe grabbing like the Geno or someone in the 14th, 15th, like it's not that much of a difference.
Right. Yeah. And people know that there's a finite number of quarterbacks that you can actually take. So that's why you get like quarterback runs on DraftKings where a lot of people want to get 3. And I think they're right to want to get 3. And so you see these runs where people take them above ADP. It's like, oh my God, there's only 5 quarterbacks left. I got to take one here. Whereas there's infinite number of shots you can take at running back, wide receiver, tight end. Hey, Greg, don't mess with professionals, buddy.
That's the other thing. This is the first stream of the summer. Like, you're not going to come on here telling me you're taking him, bluff me, and then me not make you pay for that. Like, I've got to build to equity. This is where I put in the hard work so then we can get the fruits of the labor later on in the summer. Come on, Greg.
God. Yeah, I do think one guy that I've been getting a little bit higher on is Jordan Love. We have them with like, I think the 6th lowest pass rate in the NFL, which I think is the right way to project it. However, he was hurt last year. They were a mess on offense, the wide receiver position for a bunch of it. I could see them in some outcomes, pass rate spiking. And Jordan Love is only 1 year removed from over 4,000 yards and 30 plus touchdowns. And you can get Dobbs so cheap. Golden, I think, is relatively cheap. Tucker Kraft, I think, is a really good play. Oh, he just went at 129. So, like, the Jordan Love backdoor stuff is something I've been doing.
Yeah, I don't hate it. And yeah, I mean, that was literally what game 1 was. It Mexico? It was somewhere overseas where Jordan Love got hurt in that first game. Maybe Brazil, I don't remember. But yeah, I think it's fair to say like they wanted to throw more, and then once they couldn't, they had to go with the Malik Willis game where Josh Jacobs gets like 30 plus touches, and they just kept a bit more of a run heavy game. I think that is the right projection. I get why we're placing in where we are. But again, all you're doing is making a bet, and it's such a good correlated bet of, yeah, if Jordan Love and them actually throw more, it's kind of like I don't know, Jalen Hurts Eagles light bet with regards to Jalen Hurts only threw it like 360 times last year. If he can go somewhere and even closer to league norm, like bottom 3rd, it'd be huge for the entire offense passing core. And I think with the Packers too, all those wide receivers, I think a lot of them are already good values, but they'd be huge values if this team actually passes more than we're expecting.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 picks away.
Yes.
We do not need QB anymore. We're just going to get these off the board. 2 more picks.
I've been IKBing Goddard and Ferguson over Kincaid. I don't know what you think about that, but my thought is just like, man, can Kincaid stay on the field? And he needs to kind of play that slot role. And that's where Shakir is best. So I'm a little bit shook off of last year's Kincaid stuff. He went there anyways, but yeah. And we don't have Mahomes. I was going to say Hollywood would be the pick for sure if we had Mahomes, but yeah.
So I've got Ferguson in the queue because I agree, like there's a bit of a teardrop after that, and it allows us then to grab one late tight end as well.
Yeah.
Probably need another wide receiver here.
Yeah, I don't
do Hollywood, but
yeah, I don't mind Hollywood and Rashid without Mahomes.
You kind of make a bet that, hey, it's the passing offense is still gonna, they're gonna throw a bit more inside the red zone than they were in the past. You're also maybe, hey, Xavier Worthy might get hurt, so Rashid Rice and Hollywood Brown have an increased correlation and target share there. Lots of opportunities there. It's a reach on Romeo, reach on kind of most of these others.
Yeah,
Jack continuing to fall. I think we probably need to even dock Jack even more after the recent news. But
yeah. Let me see the running backs. I think Brown's the pick, but I'm just curious what running back you're there. Yeah, so all these guys are like the contingent guys, the one injury away guys, and you kind of get to this tier here. And if you go back to the board, if I need running back help, I like to get it before this tier because all these guys need one injury away. The guys that I actually think have a path to some standalone value: Travis Etienne, Stevenson, Tootin, Dobbins, those are guys that like might not need an injury to still have standalone value. And so if I need help at running back, I like getting those guys before this tier where it's Trey Benson definitely needs a Connor injury. You know, Garendo definitely needs a CMC injury. Ray Davis probably needs a James Cook injury to pay off.
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair. Let's do a quick refresher on our team. We've got 3 QBs, as you guys can remember: Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, JJ McCarthy. Kyler is not stacked yet, so we still want to keep that in mind. Maybe a Michael Wilson later on. Running backs, we just have the Chase Brown and Marion Hampton, and then haven't taken another one since. So that's definitely something we're going to need up to load on some quantity. Wide receivers are pretty strong: Jamar Chase, Rashee Rice, Zay Flowers, Jordan S., and Juwan Jennings, and that Hollywood Brown. Tight ends, Njoku and Ferguson. Will throw on one late one there as well.
Yeah.
I didn't think we would get behind a running back, but I definitely feel like that's where we are right now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't normally, I would not recommend people typically get 3 quarterbacks before their 3rd running back, right? Even on DraftKings where running back's not as important. That is not the way that I would normally draft. That's kind of the way it fell. I agree with Rock Hardcastle here. I think Jordan Mason's fantastic play, given Aaron Jones' age, given the way that they've already said they want to use Jordan Mason at the goal line. And Aaron Jones' injury history, like, yeah, I think Mason is a fantastic pick, but he goes relatively high now. He must have gone like 1-0. Where'd he go?
Right over here, I saw it. Right here.
Oh, yeah, right there. Yeah, that's a good price on him, too. 106 there. I thought that was solid.
I do want to take a look at a 2v2, though, because we talked about the JJ McCarthy. If we didn't take McCarthy here, the QBs that were available in the next one, you're starting to get down to Stafford, Cam Ward, Sam Darnold. Like, it's a major teardrop at QB. I do like Cam Ward, but still, like, that's a major teardrop where Sam Darnold, we're not even sure if he's still going to be playing in the fantasy playoffs. Stafford is so limited in his upside, and if you're not stacking him, it's not really worth drafting him. So when I think of like, okay, what we have taken here instead on running back, I mean, I guess we could have grabbed, again, Ramondre, but I don't love it on DraftKings. Dobbins, it's not that, like, I'm pretty okay with the McCarthy pick there. It just gets ugly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear you for sure. It would have been a reach for the running backs. And the running backs I would have said to reach for Dobbins or Rashad White or Tootin probably. It would have been a reach for sure.
Yeah, if by chance a Charbonnet, a Najee, a Scatabo, ETN were available, I think that would have then pushed us to say, you know what, we'll let McCarthy fall and take the 3rd running back. But hey, we have 20 rounds. We can make up for this with some quantity. And this is the time of the year when, as we said, like, we just don't know that much about the backup running backs. So while it's not great from a confidence angle, when you're doing more darts, you have opportunity to kind of find some value.
Yeah. And you see people reaching for really bad quarterback plays. You're like, Aaron Rodgers this high. You feel like you have to do it because you need a 3rd quarterback. But man, that's really high for a guy who I'd be shocked if he had a good fantasy season.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. It's still saying some wide receivers here, but I think this is where we may need to IKB a little and grab some running backs.
Yeah, it's going to be Roshan, right? I mean, there's like some outs where he becomes the David Montgomery for Ben Johnson. I don't think that's the likeliest. And I do think Kyle Monangai is going to make the team, which complicates things even further. But yeah, I mean, my targets in this range are mostly Roshan, Will Shipley, Braylon Allen are my favorites.
Okay. Taking Roshan. We have Rico as a slightly higher rank in ADP. I do like Braylon Allen, though. I'm honestly, like, I try to mix this up. I didn't throw in some Jalen right here. Like, what would you be thinking?
Yeah.
What do you want?
I often just go for the reach on Shipley here. I just think if something happens to Barkley, Shipley's going to go nuts here. Whereas the other guys, I can't say that as confidently, but it's a reach on Shipley.
I think we need some points, though, with how little running backs we have right now.
Okay. Who gives you the most points, you think?
I'm going to go Braylon. I think Braylon still has some upside where they used him around the goal line last year, so we know that he can still have the touchdowns in his profile. With a Breece Hall injury, I think, like, they're not going to fully give him the workload because you still have Isaiah Davis, but I think he becomes that kind of clear next one. Yeah. So I think, like, yeah.
Well, that was going to be my question. How confident are you that Braylon is clear of Isaiah Davis? Because that's when I think about taking Braylon, I'm like, I love Braylon. I thought he was incredible at a young age in the Big Ten. I thought he played well last year, but they still mixed in Isaiah Davis down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, Shipley's upside, without a doubt, is higher. I mean, we saw it in a 1-game sample last year. I think it was even a 1-play sample. But I do think like Braylon Allen actually could have a standalone role as the goal line back. And then if, we did see an injury to Breece Hall, maybe he takes like a 60% workload, which would be very valuable. But
yeah.
Rico Dowdle, not a fan, not buying. Just think Carolina's rough. Like no chance to usurp.
I like Carolina. It's just the NFL told us what they thought about Dowdle. He was like free, and I get that he played reasonably well last year. Maybe I should get a little higher on him. I like Chuba. There's so many people that are looking for reasons to not like Chuba. I thought Chuba was like excellent last year. And why would they reduce his workload? But I mean, yeah, Dowdle and Braylon and Roshan are definitely close. It's not like Dowdle's expensive.
And I think that's one of those things where when you're in this part of draft, the only confident thing I really had there was that we needed 2 running backs. Which of the players, I'm fine to kind of mix up. If there was some kind of correlation, if there was some kind of argument, maybe I'll look at my exposures and see who I'm lower on. But I'm happy just to say, like, these guys are all pretty much the same. They're, no reason to take a strong stand here. Let me mix them up.
Yeah. And like, you see some of the tight ends that are going to go here. Hunter Henry hasn't gone yet, but Freiermuth, Ertz, Brenton Strange, Gesicki, like all these guys are going to have some weeks where they can score 15 or 20 DraftKings points. Like all these guys are pure starting tight ends that you get so late. And so I don't tend to panic at tight end when I get behind here.
All right, talk to me about Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth. What's your current take on the situation?
I still think there's a good chance that Jonnu ends up in Pittsburgh. So I haven't, if that happens, Freiermuth's ADP is going to go down a lot. And in these contests that aren't time boxed, I don't want to be paying like top dollar for Pat Freiermuth or Jonnu Smith, really. So I've kind of been in a holding pattern with these guys. If we get to camp and a deal's not done yet, I can still get them at the same price. So I've kind of been in a holding pattern where I take Njoku or Andrews or Tyler Warren or Loveland or something like that over Jonnu. And then here over Freiermuth, I'm totally fine with Ertz or Strange or Gesicki or whatever over Freiermuth. But I would change my tune if there's no deal come, the first or second week in camp.
Yeah, I want to be really bullish on Jonnu Smith. I think what we saw at the end of last season, even though it kind of reminds me of like, what is that? I don't know, 4 years ago, Tyler Higbee, where he had that kind of 6-8 game stretch. It's a different type of player. Jonnu Smith is always the act. Even it was Belichick back in the day when I think he either traded or signed John to the Patriots, was saying like, hey, this is, I think, the best yak tight end in the game. And so I don't think like it was just a volume dependent fluke, but it was a game plan dependency thing. And it's scary, but you just can't get that level of upside at the tight end position where he's going. That said, I'm holding off until hopefully we hear soon that he signs a new contract and extension with Miami, and then we can just kind of keep clicking him. But right now I'm in a holding pattern too.
Yeah. Sucks Michael Wilson when we're going to end up with a naked Kyler here.
Okay. Yep.
Unless you like Greg Dortch.
Yeah. Hey, Wake Forest. 4 running backs, 6 wide receivers. We can still hold off on a tight end a little longer.
I think so too.
All right, top wide receiver. I do think Jalen Knowles probably a tier above these other. I do like guys like Diami and Slayton. If I'm looking at running back, Dylan Sampson's not a bad one. I like DJ Giddens.
Yeah.
Good with Noel first and then talk through?
Yeah. Diami's one of my most owned players right now, but if you prefer Noel, that's fine. I do think Noel will start behind Christian Kirk. Can he beat him out? I don't know, but yeah. For more immediate production, I prefer Diami. I've been taking Marshawn Lloyd with these guys. I don't take Sampson that much just because Jerome Ford's still on the roster. And I think they're going to be so bad. Maybe that's a mistake, but I don't take Sampson that much. I more take Giddens and Marshawn Lloyd in this spot. Marshawn Lloyd is healthy. He is going to have to battle with Emmanuel Wilson for the job. But you could also say, hey, man, Josh Jacobs is 30-something years old. He's just coming off 300 touches. So,
yeah, and worth mentioning, the Athletic article that just came out talking about how Marshawn Lloyd visited the same doctors, the soft tissue doctors that Christian Watson did. Christian Watson missed 11 games in 2022 and 2023 combined, and then last year did not miss any games through that hamstring. So, hey, Marshawn Lloyd was a little of, hey, I see what you've done for him. Now my turn, please. So I'm willing to buy it. I'm a little overweight on him. I'll probably stay overweight on him. I did like a lot of the other. I like a lot of the Samson, the DJ Giddens, that range as well.
Yeah. And Adami Brown's been going higher and higher for sure. The Jarquez Hunter versus Corum one is, you know, I end up taking one of those guys a bunch. I'm worried that Blake Corum just like sucks and they think he sucks. I mean, Kyron was not great last year and they like refused to play Corum. But my current take is that Corum is actually the direct backup to Kyron and Jarquez has his own role, some like change of pace role. I don't know how you think about that, but Jarquez has been going pretty high and Corum has actually been going later.
Yeah, I think that's the right or the similar read that I have on things. I'm taking more Corum than Hunter because I'm struggling to see a world where like Hunter actually becomes a workhorse or bell cow in that offense. And usually at this point of the draft, when I'm looking for a running back, I'm looking for the one that is one injury away from, especially when you're on the Rams and you have that level upside as a running back. So for me, I'm leaning a little more Blake Corum. But it's just insane with McVay. Like he literally cannot get a question about any running back without also then talking about Kyron Williams. Like there's just a level of love that is similar to, I know you're talking about the Panthers. I feel it's the same thing for the Panthers with Chuba. Like they just see these guys different than we do. There are immeasurables from a practice, from a training room, from a whatever that maybe just don't show as much in the game film and as much in like the kind of metrics things, but the coaches love them. And we have to just accept like when a coach continues to lean and lean and lean on a player, maybe he's just going to continue leaning on him, even if though we from the outside think he sucks.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'd add here, Keep the Chief just mentioned it. They're working on a contract. I mean, there's been a ton of articles about this. They're working on extension for Kyron. You know, that would say a lot if they get a deal done. Just the fact they're working on it, you know, fumbles, low efficiency, they don't care. Dante Thornton Jr. is one that I've been taking. Also, there we talked about the Jack Besh, moving him down. Thornton just is like the prototypical X. Now, could it be a sacrificial X situation? Maybe, but he's at least going to be on the field, I think, Thornton a decent amount. So that's one that I've been taking when I need wide receiver help here.
Yeah, I don't hate that one. Definitely starting to take him more than like Trey Tucker, because I think a lot of people initially thought that was more of a Trey Tucker role, but it seems like rookie Thornton and athletic specimen Thornton. I mean, I think it's funny because you look at the Raiders, you see the offseason moves, you got the Chip Kelly, you bring in the Geno, like it's a good fit. Like there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. But then we're drafting one in the end of the first round. We're drafting the tight end in the second round. I think Jacoby Myers actually still a value, but like this team, when you look at the team totals, it's not good. Like their game totals, their wins. So something's going to be wrong here. I'm willing, when I want to take like Thornton, I want it because I'm betting on that offense as a whole. I'm betting on Geno because I do think there are situations where they really outplay their overall market projections. But I think as a norm, like it's expensive.
Yep, no doubt. We are in need of one more tight end, right? And then
we are at 3.572. Definitely one tight end, probably at least one more wide receiver, and then TBD on the last spot, whether it's running back or wide receiver, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, let me see the tight ends there left.
Tight ends, guys that I like are Theo, Jatavian. Those would be the top two.
Yeah.
That's down there.
Yeah, I mean, if Noah Fant were to be cut, Arroyo would go up a lot. It's just I haven't heard anything about that, and I think it's like kind of past the time where they would have done it. So I'm playing it now as if Fant's going to be on the team.
Okay, Theo goes right there. Jatavian is the top available. Are you good with that as we think through another wide receiver?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let that go. We have that Greg Dortch as the recommended because it'd give us a stack with Kyler. I don't think anyone else is going to be taking Greg Dortch. So if we wanted to end this with two wide receivers and finish with those five running backs, I'd be okay with that. I think Dontavian Wicks. I think Tesla.
Let me see the running backs.
Yep. Keaton Mitchell's not a bad one if we wanted to grab a sixth running back.
The only ones that I've ever taken in this through here are Mitchell and Woody Marks, you know, but
I'm scared off Marks with the Chubb signing. But
yeah, he just plays such a different role than those guys, but
it's true. Just if there was an injury. Okay. Keaton Mitchell, Dontavian Wicks, or Tesla?
Wicks. Tesla. Mitchell.
Oh, you can't just say all three. What are we doing here? Chat. Oh, this is what I have to deal with. It's okay. Your instinct said Dontavian Wicks. Hey, they're moving Bo Melton to linebacker. What running back? I don't even remember.
Cornerback. Cornerback.
Yeah, but he's not. Yeah. So now there's more room for Wicks to not catch the ball. This will work out well.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing that I would say about Keaton Mitchell is like you could end up taking zeros, like you could end up taking zeros all year for sure on Keaton Mitchell. I will say the guy was untackleable in 2023. So it would be I need to have like the right room for Keaton Mitchell. I feel like we could have used maybe a little bit more running back help on this team, but maybe we're okay.
So Chase Brown, we're playing that he's just going to have the same workload as last year, and that's going to be our kind of every week player. Hampton, we need to come up to speed pretty quickly over Najee. Oops. Roshan Brand. Yeah, we probably need to just take a flyer running back here for the next one.
Yeah, and there's not going to be much left whatsoever. Justin says Zach Moss. We've done research on handcuffing and stuff like this. It's not as bad as people think. My concern is I'm not even sure Zach Moss is the handcuff. There have been reports out of Cincy where the coach is mentioning Taj Brooks and the coach is mentioning Samaje Perine and then saying Zach Moss has to fight with the rest of the guys to make the team or whatever. So I'm a little gun shy on Zach Moss right now. If you wanted he's going to be in there on some clean passing downs, you could go Perine, but we're going to need some more upside, I think, to win $2 million in this massive field.
Yeah, I wouldn't. And I think even Justin said there, never mind, you got Chase Brown. But no, I agree with you, the Zach Moss thing. I am purposely not taking him at all because of that commentary where they're like, hey, Samaje Perine, he is a professional. He has the role. Like, I've actually started taking some Perine for that, especially on DK. They're even kind of happy with their rookie as well and Brooks. So I think we can find a running back. We don't want to say them too early because we got all of you crazies that are watching and going to steal from us, especially Greg, who's still bitter about JJ McCarthy. But I will show you the running backs and you can kind of think through who you're interested in.
We will stick around after this for maybe 10 or 15 minutes and answer whatever questions you guys have really about anything whatsoever, especially here from Best Ball Meat Gazer. Adam and Justin, if I win BBM, I'd like to take you both sport fishing in Cabo, buddy. Sounds great, especially the meat gazing part. Sounds absolutely, absolutely wonderful.
I hope we can dress up like that avatar as well. That'll go well in the. Okay, we are how far away? We still got a few picks. Let's go Woody Marks real quick. So yeah, I think Woody Marks obviously plays a very different role. If anything, he kind of has that Daria Ugambuwale role, and I think he may have a little standalone value. My concern with the Woody Marks is if Joe Mixon gets hurt, there's no longer a world where he now becomes I hate saying workhorse, but even just like a substantial increase in volume because now Chubb has that. So that for me has substantially decreased my desire to draft him. We talked about Perine. I don't want him here. Did we did not take Garendo, right? No, we talked about
we did not.
But I was going to say, if you grab Garendo, grabbing someone like Jordan James isn't a bad idea. Because, hey, you're making a correlated bet that McCaffrey gets hurt.
Yeah, the guys that I take here are just the only ones I've really taken are Marks and Monangai. We have Roshan though, so I'm not sure that we want Monangai. And then Jordan James, I'm okay with just on maybe he beats out Garendo. I doubt it, but if CMC goes down, I think there'll be some mix of James and Garendo.
All right. I went with Sean Tucker. I went IKB. I know that we cannot get him in a good projection. It's just so hard when you have Rachaad White and you have Bucky Irving ahead of him. But I think he has a lot of talent. I think that just being attached to the Bucs offense, we saw it in a one-game sample size last year. He had a huge game. And I think if you have an injury to either Rachaad or Bucky, that he's going to get a decent role. And that late in drafts, I'm also looking for players who no one else is drafting. And because we don't have him actually ranked highly, maybe it's my Bucs fandom, but I'm taking him a little. So
no, and I think Sean Tucker can play also, and I don't know that Rachaad White's role changes a ton if Bucky were to go down, whereas Sean Tucker's role certainly changes a ton. And, we didn't have any Bucks bets. We didn't have Bucky or like if we didn't have Roshan, I would have said take Monangai for sure. But once we have Roshan, we're already betting that he's the backup to Swift. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, I thought this was an okay draft. A little bit abnormal for me with the 3 quarterbacks there before we have 3 running backs for sure. But yeah, what do you think of the draft?
Yeah, I think we really just got behind the 8 ball at the running back position, especially when you're drafting Hampton here. It's difficult because, yes, there's upside, but like he may not even be like the 1A until halfway in the season. And so we might just get, dig ourselves into a hole. I was trying to think through the draft, like where would I have kind of done a change to get another running back? Because the Kyler and Purdy, like, I don't know. We could have grabbed like a Mason or Tracy. It feels like a reach, and like those were good picks. It maybe was honestly like either the Addison or Jennings rather than double tapping, grabbing both those, grabbing someone like Swift, Judkins. I think like Aaron Jones, that probably would have been like the 2v2 swap that I would have done differently. Yeah. Maybe it's the 3 QBs. I don't know. I don't love this draft, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. You guys can put some questions in here. We can hang around for another 10 or 15 minutes. If you guys have any questions whatsoever specific to DraftKings drafts or anything else. Yeah. If you guys don't know, you need to pick up Rolling Stone from last month so you can see Justin Herzig himself. Have women been throwing themselves at you over the last month since the article came out, Herzig?
Well, I mean, Sabrina Carpenter, she was on the cover, I think, of the most recent one as well, and she did not have any clothes on. So I'm just glad they didn't use that picture of me for the cover. But yeah, all the people in the past are coming out of the woodwork too, because people just love a fantasy football player.
Taylor says, for Levitan's player notes, if a player does not have any notes now, does that indicate there are differing views between me and staff ranks? So if I don't have really like a take on a player, I think he's just like ranked appropriately. ADP is appropriate. There's very few guys like that in the player notes, but I just left it blank. I didn't want to like force saying something, but the like 95% of players do have notes there in the player by player page.
Yeah, I think those are really helpful. I enjoy those myself, just kind of skimming through them. We get a lot of like the back and forth behind the scenes in our Slack channel when we're discussing projections, but it's nice as well, like, even for me just to read through Adams and be like, yeah, okay, I get why, like, hey, there's a different take here than maybe what our projections team or maybe what the market is leaning towards.
Yeah, and I don't, like I'm one person among, literally 15 people that are working on this. And so, I might have slightly different takes in our ranks. Most of our takes are aligned pretty well, but I tried to note somewhere I'm outlier versus our ranks. Julian says, curious on the Omarion Hampton ranking, underdog versus drafters. He's ranked 5 spots higher on drafters, despite it being total points and with Najee. So yeah, drafters is no playoffs if you guys are playing over there. How do you change your strategy there, Herzig? Obviously, what Julian's referring to here is that if we think Hampton's value is more second half of the season, that doesn't really matter on drafters where week 1 is worth the same as week 16.
Yeah, I'd have to look into this more and see, like, is his ADP different? Yeah. Like, what is pulling that? Because I know when we do build our projections, the sites like, DraftKings and FanDuel, we are actually putting a little extra weight at the end of the season, which does help people like rookies and stuff. But I think for the drafters, we still need to keep in mind that when you're structuring a team, you don't want to only be thinking about like, hey, the whole season and then the first half is just valuable as the second, because yes, on a points like per game they are. But when you think about what happens throughout a season with injuries and such, it's actually more valuable to have a player who is thriving at the second half of the season than the first. Because in the first half of the season, you already have everyone's mostly healthy. You don't have any buys. So while Omarion Hampton, won't be producing as many points in the first half, your other player, you get to the second half of the season, and now it's more likely someone like James Conner or Alvin Kamara, they have gotten hurt or they don't have as much of their role. While Omarion Hampton, when the rest of your, not the rest of your team, but some of your players in your team are fading, Omarion Hampton is now increasing. So I think it's not often kind of thought through for the drafters is, it's not so much of, hey, we, eliminator, we want to start strong just to survive through the first couple rounds, but we want to make sure we're also building a team that can finish strong. And we do that through picking like players like Hampton, who are going to thrive in that second half too.
Okay. Do you have a preference of where to pick so far this year, Herzig? I've been trying to be relatively balanced in the first 2 rounds here, but do you have a preference on where to pick this year?
I never get this question. Like, I mean, what's the like? If I had a preference, can I do anything about it? It's not like I get to choose. Like, this isn't not, I mean, I actually enjoy 1 the most, and I usually say that every year because usually the gap between 1 and 2 is the greatest. But also, as you go through the draft, you can ensure that you get stacks if you want to reach because there's no one in between you. But okay, if I'm going 3rd, 5th, 9th, I actually think 9th like isn't that bad. The back half of the 1st round feels pretty strong this year because that 2nd round is still really strong. But even though you start seeing like Devon Achan's kind of available in the mid end of the 2nd, and I like that pick. Like McConkey, Achan, that's kind of where I think there's like a teardrop after them in that 2nd. So if you can get one of those in the 2nd round, maybe with the 5th, 9th, it's not too bad either. I feel like this is a pretty balanced year, comparative to previous years.
Agreed. Justin says, are you guys focusing on week 17 correlations right now? Don't think there was much of a factor in this draft. So we've looked at this and talked about this a ton. There's a video and an article up called On the Clock, I believe it is, that Herzig has. And so it goes through, and for any of you that are like relatively new to best ball, really, really recommend you read this article called On the Clock. What do you think about first when you're on the clock? 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th? And, Herzig and I agreed that like week 17 correlation is probably the 5th or 6th thing we think about when we're on the clock. Leone had a bit of a stronger take if you go back and listen to that video. That week 17 correlation was a bit more important. I will say that now that more people are doing it, I think it's worth less. On DraftKings specifically, I think fewer people are thinking about it just because it's more casual and softer drafters on here. They're not on for best ball only like they are on Underdog. But yeah, anything to add on week 17 correlation, Herzig?
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is on streams, it's hard to always touch on everything. Like we're talking through players' takes. And to be honest, it's not that exciting to kind of be like, oh, well, there's this week 17 correlation, but it's still kind of in my mind. For example, Jamar Chase, they play the Cardinals. So you still have like that Arizona Jamar Chase correlation, even though they're not on the same team for that week 17. But I mean, I think you're probably just like, hey, why aren't these guys thinking about week 17? Should I not be? No, you still should be. Like it's still important. But I'll admit, like, yeah, on a stream, it's hard to cover everything.
Yeah. Connor says it's ETR have defense/OL rankings. Brandon Thorne covers offensive lines for us. That will be out likely mid-July or so with his offensive line rankings. We have all the DVP data from last year up in terms of defense, but defense stuff is baked into the model and baked into the rankings. And we will have individual defense rankings if that's what you mean in Draft Kit also. But no, we do not have like who we think will be the best defenses this year. Period up. But that's not a bad idea. We could definitely work on that. Why is TreVeyon Henderson going so high? So Patriots had a ton of holes in the draft, ton of holes in their team. They used the 38 overall pick on TreVeyon Henderson, even though Ramondre was under contract. I think they're going to try to play TreVeyon Henderson in the James White kind of role and kind of let it expand from there. I can see why people are going to make a case, though, that he's going too high here. Herzig, any thoughts on TreVeyon Henderson?
Yeah, I mean, we need to talk about it from a talent perspective as well. Like he is explosive. He is without a doubt going to be like their top weapon in that offense. And like I think saying he's going to play in the James White role kind of underplays what he can do when he gets in space. Like if he could actually get the James White volume, he would way surpass his value for where he's being drafted just because of like every time he touches the ball, it's a home run threat. Yeah. There was a recent article yesterday, the day before, that talked about like, can he become a workhorse? I don't expect him to become a workhorse. I don't think that's what they want him to be. And that's why like I like taking Ramondre on Underdog because I still think he's going to get probably like 12, 15 touches a game, predominantly carries, and goal line work we'll see. But that's really the opportunity for TreVeyon is if he can still get like something like 6 to 8 carries, throw in the receptions, and then also like maybe get some goal line work, like he could just be a huge smash. But yeah, this is a talent bet.
Yeah. Clay says Ja'Cory Brooks might win the starting running back job in Washington. B-Rob and Eckler very injury prone. So I actually talked to Eckler a little bit about this, about how hard it is when you're a round 7 pick, when you're an undrafted free agent to actually win a role. It's going to be really, really hard for Ja'Cory Brooks to do so. So I haven't taken him at all. I don't disagree with you that B-Rob and Eckler could get hurt, but they also have Jeremy McNichols there. And that's just like, I think there's better bets to make than Ja'Cory Brooks right now.
Yeah, well, and he might win the starting job because they're injured. No, he's not going to win it if they're healthy. He could maybe back his way into it if there were injuries. But as you kind of noted, even if you have an injury to B-Rob and Eckler, it's no guarantee that he's going to become the workhorse. They could very easily also just sign someone off the street. Like, draft capital matters so much in NFL.
Is it worth taking Najee and Hampton in order to get all the Chargers rushing points? So Leone looked at this. You can read the Best Ball Manifesto. It's on the site. It's not bad, right? It's not like terrible. When I think, how am I actually going to beat 600,000 people? It's like, I want to draft Zach Charbonnet and have Kenneth Walker go down. I want to draft Jawan James and have Garendo and CMC go down. You block yourself from having 2 stars if you take the guy's handcuff, right? So I don't typically do it. In smaller field, though, I would. Any more thoughts on the handcuffing stuff, Herzig?
Yeah, so Leone and I looked at this, I think like 3 or 4 years now, because it was one of the kind of contrarian viewpoints I had to the industry, because, initially best ball was always, hey, draft like you're right. And to Adam saying, like, when you're right, your star player, your better running back's not going down. So why need the backup? But what the research really found is that it actually is a really valuable strategy if you're doing it in the right situations, which usually is when it's an ambiguous situation. And so the prime example from a couple years ago was when you had Achane, Mostert, and Jeff Wilson. It was a 3-man backfield. We didn't really know what was going to happen. They were all kind of good values, and ended up, if you drafted Mostert and Achane, you absolutely dominated your league. They both had huge high advance rates. They also ping-ponged with regards to who had the bigger games back and forth. So I think Najee and Hampton, that's probably the highest draft capital I would want to be doing it at. But yeah, I think that's actually a decent one, because what we're saying is, hey, this Chargers team is going to be pretty strong. They're going to have a devoted to the run, and you can very much, maybe one of those 2 gets hurt, and now the other one absolutely becomes a screaming value. And maybe, who knows, maybe later on that person gets hurt again and the other one has it. And you get some ping pong weeks later on in the playoffs. This is a crazy structured tournament that we're going for. The finals of this one is like 1,100 people. Yeah. So if you have the opportunity to get a low-owned Najee or a low-owned Hampton in, because the other one was kind of carrying the season of the playoffs previously, and now that one gets the workload due to an injury, like, that's the kind of freaky, weird stuff that you kind of want to happen to win a 1,000+ week 17 final.
Live like Larry. I think there's an underdog question. A lot of people on underdog now, mostly because I think we just put this data out. 3 quarterback and 3 tight end teams have looked pretty good on underdog, even though it's only 18 rounds. And so you're using 6 out of your 18 picks at quarterback and tight end. My take is that advance rate for those are good or best. If you just want to advance out of your league, 3 quarterback and 3 tight end is strong. If I actually was going for first in like BBM, I'd be trying. I like elite quarterback on underdog personally, on underdog personally a lot more. So I end up with a lot of 2 quarterback builds on underdog. On DraftKings, though, in 20 rounds, I always have 3 tight ends, and maybe I try 2 quarterback if I get a Lamar or a Jaden or an Allen, but typically I have 3 quarterbacks on DraftKings also. Any more on that, Herzig?
Yeah, for DraftKings, I'm definitely in the 3 QB, 3 tight end, and occasionally we'll even do 4 tight end. We've talked about all the reasons why. Go check out that Underdog versus DraftKings kind of YouTube that we put out to go more. On the underdog side of things, I've been a fan of 3 QBs with the playoff structure, because I do think it is important to get those kind of more opportunities to get your stack right, and then in the playoffs, and also trying to get through like a lower owned QB, lower end owned stack. The elite QB, and we talked about this one, Adam, when we did the top structures of 2025 with regards to elite QB, 3 tight end, 3 QB, etc. For me, with elite QB, I think it actually helps your advance rate. Especially this year with Jalen Hurts going in the 5th round, like you've got some pretty strong values. I do think, though, as you get into the playoffs, like let's say you took Jalen Hurts and then just one other QB, and Jalen Hurts has a huge season, ends up QB1, tush push is good, he throws a bit more, and then you come playoff time, he's got a 25% advance rate, and then week 15, week 16, he puts up 35 points. Now you're getting to week 17, and Jalen Hurts, he's probably going to be like 50% owned. So now all that value that he brought to you, you can't differentiate against the field. And that's where I think like having those 3 QBs, because maybe you actually would have rather had Jalen Hurts had a really bad week, and then your other QB carried you to the playoffs. You could have the more unique Jalen Hurts. So I'm a fan of it. If I'm grabbing an elite one, I'm still don't love doing it, or I'm more willing to say, especially right now, if I draft someone like Josh Allen, let me go Tyler Shuck and Jackson Dart. And that's where I'm not devoting as much capital. I can get those really late. And who knows? Now Jackson Dart gives me that kind of fantasy playoffs upside to get a lower owned Josh Allen through or whatever.
Yep. A few more here. Triple try. Who do we like best out of Jacobs, Achane, Bucky? Achane for me, especially in full PPR. I think that's pretty easy one. Let's see. Yes, there's a lot of fuck the AI slop content out there. Yes. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but I know that's the feeling from a lot of people. If I want to do 6-team sit-and-go drafts on Underdog, any chance ETR could provide their old methodology when ETR used to provide 6-team rankings? So if you're playing in these smaller ones where it's not a big tournament and there's fewer people, you can get a bigger edge at tight end, a bigger edge at quarterback. I think those are probably 2 adjustments to make. Any other adjustments if you're playing 6-mans? Herzig?
Yeah, let me just do a quick value above replacement kind of lesson. So if you're building these, and this is what people, are doing for 3-man drafts, 6-man drafts, dailies, all of that. But it's important to kind of think through who is usually the last player that is drafted at each position, because that becomes your new replacement level player. In the draft we just did with 20 rounds, you can see like replacement level for running back and wide receivers, like it's pretty much 0. So it's hard. It's not nearly as valuable exercise. But when you only have 6 people in the draft, your last running back being taken might be Tyrone Tracy or somewhere in that range. So if you can actually take a projection systems, there are public projections. Mike Clay has some. There's a few different other ones out there. You can actually see how valuable other positions are, and that'll bring the elite QBs, the elite tight ends, even more up the ranks. And then you can figure out for running backs and wide receivers, like where those tiers are, where you should be drafting. So while I think no, I don't think we have plans to kind of provide you that yourself, but it's a really good exercise to kind of go through and build that out yourself. That's what I've done many times in the past, and I think it gives me a better feel for those types of drafts.
All right. Last one we're going to do here comes from our friend Greg. He says, are we drafting Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper? So if and when these guys sign, their ADP is going to go up for sure. I'm still not even sure that I really want them, though, if they're total dust. So I've taken Amari Cooper a little bit just because I feel like his prime was more recently, and when he hits, he can hit down the field, whereas Keenan has always needed a ton of volume to get there. And I don't think wherever he lands, if he lands, he's going to get a ton of volume. So I prefer Amari to Keenan if I'm making this play. I don't make this play a lot, though. There's been some rumors for the Steelers and Amari Cooper. That's been wild speculation. I haven't heard anything about these guys. Have you taken them at all yet, Herzig?
Yeah, the only rumors I'm hearing about Amari Cooper is that just he's kind of done with football and just this is kind of Will Fuller territory, and that scares me. Keenan Allen, I mean, of course, I'm talking from the sideline, but it just seems like he's a guy who has more loved the game. It seems like he wants to be out there. So I just have a little more confidence in that he's actually going to play this year. Agreed with you, he does kind of need that volume, but also he's earned targets everywhere he's gone. Even in Chicago last year when he was Fat Keenan, he was still earning targets. So I've drafted a little Keenan because I think he's more likely to be the one who actually plays this year, and he's probably going to have his choice for where he goes, and you'd expect he's going to go somewhere where he'll actually get some volume. Amari, it scares me. I'm not touching him right now. Might be a miss, but I'm scared.
All right. Appreciate you guys being here to hang out. Remember, every Thursday at 2:00, Herzig will be doing a stream. He'll let you know whether it is behind the paywall for Best Ball subscribers or it will be free here on our YouTube. Be sure you are subscribed to our YouTube. It is free. My interview with Austin Eckler we have coming soon and already up right now. I talked to Silva and Tyler Fulgham about team level futures going forward. Last thing is, if you have never played Best Ball on DraftKings before, your first $20 Millie Maker, they will match you with a ticket to do another Best Ball Millie Maker. I play I think last year I got up to 80%, maybe 85% of my action was on DraftKings, mostly because I was in that $555 buy-in 20 times. I think that's one of the best tournaments there is in Best Ball, the 555 with $1 million to first. But of course, they also have the $20 buy-in. And of course, they have a ton of hundreds and single entries and 333s also that'll be coming out through the summer. So yeah, you'll see me in the DraftKings streets for sure.
That's a good point, Adam. People, if you're watching this now, watching it afterwards, put in the comments, what are the contests that you want me to be drafting on Thursdays? Because we're going to be mixing it up across the sites. And yeah, you mentioned the 555. Maybe we'll try to get some of those going throughout the summer too. But a lot of contests, both from a DraftKings best ball, but also other sites, different structures. So put in the comments which ones you'd most like me to see me draft. And I'll try to mix those in.
All right. For Herzig, for producer Ryan, for everyone behind the scenes at ETR Best Ball, I'm Adam. Good luck, everybody.